And during a global pandemic, when the nation is in crisis, honesty should be the best policy from our leaders, right? Well, it seems that may not be happening. Victorian Health Minister Jenny Michalos has continued to refuse to answer questions over the disastrous hotel quarantine blunder in Victoria. This is despite the chair of the investigation announcing the leaders, including Premier Daniel Andrews, have permission to reveal the truth to Victorians. Ben, is this relevant information for us to know at this stage, or should we trust that our leaders are doing the right thing?
I think that we need to trust that our leaders are doing the right thing. I think as soon as we go down that path of sort of second guessing anything, I think we're opening up, ourselves into a danger zone. I think that the information that we're getting from some of our leaders probably isn't as clear enough as it should be. So maybe there might be a bit of an issue with that. But that's certainly how I feel about it today.
Look, just 20 minutes ago, Dan Andrews was asked about this issue at his daily press conference. This is breaking information. Let's have a listen to how he reacted and what he had to say.
If I were to conduct an inquiry and then present my findings, I think you would rightly be critical that should have been an independent process. No, it is not clear the lines of authority and accountability and exactly what has gone on here. It is not clear. That is why, despite some of the commentary, I just want to be clear with you. I set the inquiry up, so I'm fairly well placed to tell you why I did it. I don't have answers that I am satisfied with. There are questions that cannot be answered, and the appropriate thing is to get those answers. And then, regardless of what those answers are, I will be accountable for those answers and for any errors, any mistakes that were made. That's the job that I have. If I could answer all of those questions, and many more that I'm sure you would like to put to me, then I would, and we wouldn't need to have a judicial inquiry.
Look, Robbo, it's an interesting response, and in a moment I want to talk about how people are challenging the government, but I actually don't have a problem in questions being asked when there have been big issues like this. There isn't a problem with wanting answers, is there?
No, absolutely not. And that's the most important thing about government in Australia. We're in a democracy. Governments need to be held accountable. And the way to do that is through the media and also through the opposition. So we spoke a little while ago about, the fact that Scott Morrison is not going to open up federal parliament. They need to be held accountable. That government needs to be transparent. Now, there is no question here that there was a massive stuff up with that hotel quarantine. And they need to start answering questions. And this is what it really... Dan Andrews has proven himself in the past to be quite an upfront leader, gets the job done, says he'll do something, then he'll do it. This is where we need him to go exactly that right now, because what it sounds like for me is that, okay, so you've been given permission to talk about it. We're still working on our little points. We're still working on how we're going to word it and how we're going to phrase it. That's not good leadership, and especially when Victorians, like never before, are being put under such stress. There needs to be more questions. This idea of saying, I set up an inquiry, but no, not good enough.
Look, it's interesting. This is just one part of the puzzle, because last night Nine News revealed that Victoria scaled back its COVID-19 tracing team despite denial from Dan Andrews and Jenny Michalos. Let's take a look.
Nine News has confirmed when cases spiked, there was a reliance on businesses like abattoirs to do their own tracing. Many calls to close contacts weren't made. Under-resourced and with the community transmission then rampant, the tracing system couldn't cope. The Premier denies he scaled it back.
No, that team is a very big team, and it's grown pretty steadily as cases have grown.
On June 24, Victoria accepted 1,000 personnel, but cut that back to 250 within hours. And unlike New South Wales, they weren't used to make the crucial calls.
We have been standing up additional ongoing resources of our own here in Victoria.
See, Robbo, this is the problem when you feel like that you're being lied to.
And that's what it feels like, right? Like... At the height, well, not the height, but, leading up to what Victoria is dealing with now, to cut the staff by more than 3/4 is phenomenal. Like, and he's lied about it. He goes, it's a very big team. Well, I would suggest 1,000 people is a good team. 250 is not, especially when you had access to 1,000 people before. And also that revelation that they weren't doing phone calls, that it wasn't. So I think everyone's blaming the hotel, but I think there are many more layers that we're starting to see. And perhaps that's why Dan Andrews and his government aren't too keen on actually answering questions right now, because we're going to see a lot more of these layers that led to this stuff up.
Ben, it's a tough call. We're all Captain Hindsight here. You know, the rates were coming down, restrictions were easing. They may have thought this wasn't a necessity because we know we're facing a budget blowout. You know, like the money has to come from somewhere. I can actually see how this decision was made. But the problem is sometimes not the decision, it's the cover-up.
Yeah, I think that you might be right. But I think what's also happening is that there was a huge issue with everyone jumping on the bandwagon of blaming Daniel Andrews. And I think that everyone was very similarly looking for one thing to blame. Now, I think there's so many different issues that is going on. And the government is obviously, especially the Victorian government, is obviously in a state of duress. And they're just trying to get on top of all of this. It's very difficult, though, when everyone else is second-guessing every move that they're making.
It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.